Hello everyone, I'm Will from Hitmarker, and we've been sent over some questions by our lovely friends over at the British Esports Association who have asked all of you for your burning questions about applying for esports jobs. And what we're going to do today is we're going to look over some of the top questions that we were asked and give our answers. So without further ado, let's get on to our first question. What kind of opportunities should I be looking for with a BA/MA and decent work experience, but not an esport? We get asked this question a whole lot, and the answer is really, consider esports isn't a job, esports is a sector. So even if you've got good experience and you've got a decent degree in something that isn't at all related to esports, you can still easily find work in the sector. Business development, marketing, all of this stuff is not something that you traditionally think about when you think about competitive gaming, but they're some of the most popular jobs on the site. So if you've got good experience, look at what you've done in the past, look at what your degree's in, and see how that could translate into an esports job. Because I promise you, with pretty much everything, there's going to be an opportunity for you. If you did archaeology, it might be a little tougher, but we can make it work. Best ways to network in esports. This is a tricky question because there's a bunch of ways, and of course with 2020 being the way that it was, some of the usual options of going to events, meeting people there haven't really been the same. But with social media, stuff like Twitter, LinkedIn, you can find people who are in the kind of areas that you want to be getting into or in similar sectors, in similar positions that are ones that you're looking at. Just getting in contact with them. You'll find that a lot of people in esports are pretty amenable to being reached out to, giving advice, helping other people out in that way. So just reaching out to people very politely, make sure you check time zones. Looking at you, person who messaged me at 4 in the morning and woke me up on LinkedIn. I don't have LinkedIn on my phone anymore because of you. But I would just say reaching out, asking questions, most people will be happy to help you out as much as they can. My uni said they would help me find a placement for my third year, but they've left me out to dry. Any suggestions on where to start on finding one? Hitmarker, basically. If you look on our site, you can filter it by internships, and we've got as many esports internships as we can as are being publicly advertised online, which is where you usually find that. Outside of that, make sure you know exactly what sector you want to be working in. So look at what you did at university and where you want to be getting your work experience in, so what you want to be filling out your resume for, and then just looking at companies in the UK that are leading in those areas and reaching out and seeing if they've got any potential advice for you. Because while that's not the best way of doing things, it's a case of if you reach out to, say, the leader in broadcasting in the UK, if you want to be in broadcast production, and asking, hey, I'm looking for an internship, there aren't any listed in my sector, do you have one, or does someone in the sector have one? Can you point me in the right direction? Again, I think a lot of people in esports would be very happy to help you. Just be very polite and very straightforward in what you're asking. I think that's the best bet, I'm afraid. Obviously, you'd want the university to be helping you out, but if not, I think those are the best tactics you can use to try and find something in a short space of time. What is a good entry-level position that's not social media manager or intern? It depends what you want to go into, really. You can find entry-level positions in pretty much any area of esports. So if you don't want to be a social media manager, obviously don't take a social media manager role, but if you want to be in marketing, sales and business development, I think that's a key one. Because lots of esports organizations, as the scene professionalizes more and more, they want more partnerships, they want more sponsorships, and being in these kind of areas is definitely something that we've seen on the rise. If you're looking for something a little bit more creative or like traditionally creative, stuff like writing, journalism are always things that people are looking out for that you can find a lot of freelance entry-level roles in. Or if you're even more creative, you could go for something like graphic design. Lots of people are looking for freelance graphic designers, and showing that you've got those skills can definitely be a good place to start in esports. Again, it depends on what you're skilled at. So look at what you've got in terms of experience already, if you have any, what you've been studying, what you're passionate about, and just go from there. Look for jobs in that area because there'll be entry-level stuff. What would be the next step to take for an independent freelance host or caster in order to grow in the industry? Now this is the million-dollar question for talent. It really depends what step you're at right now. If you're in a position where you haven't got paid work, which is where a lot of casts are coming from. They can find themselves volunteer stuff, but they can't take that next step up. One thing I would massively suggest, well, two things I'd massively suggest. First, network with those around you or slightly above you. Reach out to casters at a higher level, ask for VOD reviews, ask for advice on how to grow, and just interact with them, because quite often in casting and talent, which isn't how it should be, word of mouth is very important. So getting yourself on the radar of people in leagues that you'd like to work on, definitely a decent way to start. And get yourself a regular casting spot in a league, even if it's volunteer. Obviously, you want to be paid for your time, but in a volunteer sense, there's more opportunities for you to grow, and you don't have to necessarily be competing with the best because they won't be going for those roles. And just learning how to cast week in, week out across a league, you'll develop loads of really great skills like narratives, camera work, all of this stuff, which is important, growing as talent. So hopefully that's asked your question. If your next step is higher up than that, then feel free to reach out to us. We can talk further. But that is the advice I'd give to amateur casters who are looking for their first paid gig. How would you go about graduate jobs after university? Do you need to adjust your CV or anything? Yeah, you should put your university degree on your CV, realistically. I think your resume always has to be an evolving document. It should never be the same for two applications, really. If you've just graduated from university and you're looking for jobs that specifically require a degree, just make sure your degree is listed on your CV, but it's much more about you looking for those roles that ask for a degree in the job application. I think that's the thing that you really need to adjust when you're looking. It should be on your searching side rather than on the resume side. Past that, there's nothing that different in terms of how you'd go about looking for work, if you've got a degree or not. It's just about adding that extra bit of experience, unlocking that extra level of job or that extra section of job that needs a degree. Just go from there, I think. 3 things to add to a cover letter when trying to get your foot in the door. Don't be over formal. Make sure that you're not using to whom it may concern. Make sure to have done your research on the company, and mentioning stuff that they've done recently can really help you out in terms of catching the eye of whoever's reading it. So if you know about a marketing push they've just done, or a new product or a new advancement in the company, always mention that pretty early on, because it shows that you've done the research. Even if it's not the most organic thing, it shows that you've taken the time to do the research, and hiring managers will always appreciate that. And make sure that you're always explaining and linking back your experience to the job that you're applying for. So always have the point, so a piece of experience, some education, anything like that. Evidence, say how you got that experience or that skill. Analysis. I sound like a year 11 English teacher, but then link back the analysis of how this experience gave you this skill and why it would be good for the job you're applying for. Because everyone can say that they've got leadership skills or communication skills, but if you can give evidence and then say, and at a company like this, it was very similar to what you guys are doing over at your company. So that will just take every single point you have and upgrade it a little bit over your competition, and really spoon feed the hiring manager that you're right for the job. And as soon as they can tick off that you're a good person for the job, great, that's exactly what you want, because then they can move you on to the next stage of the process. How can international students explore job opportunities in this industry? It can be a tricky one. I've talked to international students who have been able to find jobs in the UK or wherever they're studying, and then they've remained there afterwards. I've known international students who have looked for work in the country that they're studying and haven't been able to find it, and have had to leave to go back to their country of origin. I think you just have to be very careful in looking for companies that aim for bigger companies, I would say, because if you're someone who will need a visa after graduating, the large companies are more likely to be ones that sponsor that stuff. Some companies will explicitly say, we don't sponsor visas at this time for this role, in which case I would ignore looking at those. But I would say have a plan in mind, and don't be too disheartened if you can't find something on graduation and you have to go to a different country or you have to return to your country of origin, because you can still come back to the UK if this is where you want to work in the future. I've heard plenty of stories of people starting in the UK, loving it, going back to wherever they were from originally, working there for a few years, getting some experience, and then coming back to the UK for their second job, a more intermediate role where there's more likely to be that visa sponsorship. Are there entry-level esports jobs you can get into without any experience? Yes, that's what an entry-level job is, you'd hope. It can be tricky. The problem with entry-level jobs in esports is because people are so passionate about it, not everyone who's applying for them is an entry-level candidate. You don't want to be just sitting around and saying, I don't need to be developing or creating my own stuff or gaining experience before applying for jobs, because there are others who will not be sitting around and they'll beat you to the punch. But the short answer is yes, there are esports jobs that are entry-level which don't require any experience at all. But try and get some experience before applying. What are employers looking for on CVs related to esports? The same stuff that they're looking for on CVs not related to esports. They're looking for, a hiring manager basically sits down with a resume or CV in the UK and wants to basically just tick off that the person is qualified for the job and would be a good fit for the company. So your resume just needs to be a document that shows you can do the job that's posted, so you've got the skills that they require, you've got the experience that they require, and that you're the right fit for the company. So looking into the company culture, seeing how they interact on social media, seeing how the company presents itself is going to be important on the resume. But if you can just easily point the hiring manager to that, make it easy to read your resume, make it easy to find all the most important information, past that, if you do that, you're golden. That's all you really need. Resumes are very simple when you understand the ins and outs and how the hiring manager would want to read through it. If we are from the MENA region, can we benefit from Hitmarker? Yeah, absolutely. I had a look. There aren't that many jobs in North Africa and the Middle East, unfortunately, at the moment on Hitmarker, but we've certainly seen them in the past, and there are a few in that region. But Hitmarker is a bunch of remote anywhere jobs where you can essentially work those jobs from anywhere in the world. And there are even some of those jobs which are time zone bound. So they will be saying, this job is remote, but we're looking for someone who can work on a European time zone or an American time zone. If you can adapt your sleeping schedule for those jobs, and I mean with Europe, it's not that far off in terms of time zone at all, you can certainly find opportunities in that region. Unfortunately, it might be more difficult to find an in-person job, something that isn't remote, just because there are fewer of those jobs on the site because of language barriers and because esports is less, there's just less esports jobs in those regions, unfortunately. But we always keep a lookout, keep checking back. You can set up filters on Hitmarker that will allow you to get email notifications for the region or for the countries that you're looking in. So you'll get an email whenever we post a new job. And I mean, we're posting hundreds of jobs every day. So hopefully we can find something that's right for you in that region. How can people become players? Get good at the game, I guess is the reductive answer here. You need to be at a very high level competitively in order to compete at a game. So if you're looking at something like League of Legends, if you're a gold player and you want to be competing as a professional player, you need to be high diamond plus, realistically plus at this point. Once you've got there, if you think that you're a very strong player, upgrading your social media game, making sure that people know that you're good, know that you're available looking for a team, is the way of going about that. And then when you've got your foot in the door and you've got that kind of, you've got that first step and people know who you are, then it becomes much easier to find your next team. Also, for whatever game you're in, there'll probably be websites where the highest ranked players are listed so that teams can scout them easier. Make sure that you're on those sites. So make sure that you hit the minimum qualifications for them, reach out to the sites, make sure you're listed, would be my advice. But just practice, 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 win the game all the time, and you'll be onto a good one. The final question coming from Facebook. What kind of experiences could help me look better when looking for a job in the esports industry? It just depends on the sector, really. It comes back to that. It's if you're looking for a job in esports marketing experience will look really good for you. There's such a common error of people saying, how do I get a job in esports? Esports isn't a job, it's a sector. You need to be looking at what do you want to do for a living? Do you want to do marketing, business, social media, sales, graphic design? Look at what job you want there, and then look at the experience that those kind of jobs typically ask for. That is the experience that those jobs will want the most. So if you're looking for a job in graphic design, get a good graphic design portfolio, present it to the company on your application, and that will be what impresses them the most. If you're looking for marketing jobs, show that you've done marketing before. Yeah, it's really that simple.